So good morning. My name is Lisa Haywood and I'm from the Department of Education, Bureau of Wellness. And joining me again this morning is Katie Vedera. Katie is the Director of Access Resources at Colby-Sawyer College. She works with students with disabilities and mental health challenges to provide accommodations and services in the classroom and throughout the rest of the campus. Katie is a certified special educator in New Hampshire and Vermont, and she holds an MED in special education from Boston University. Katie, thank you so much for coming back today and talking with us about the challenges that students might experience when they navigate from high school to college, especially during this COVID-19. So I've got some questions for you, and I'm hoping that I can go through them and you can just take your time to answer them.
Sounds wonderful.
Okay, so what are some of the general differences from high school to college for students with disabilities or mental health challenges?
Yeah, it's a great question. For students going from the move from high school to college is one of the biggest transitions students will make, whether they've gone to the same school and been with the same peers kindergarten through high school or have changed schools and towns during that time. That move, the decision to go to college is such a big transition in terms of deeper intellectual and academic learning, going to adulthood, and the independence. And often students and families, students with disabilities and mental health challenges and their families are planning for that and asking what types of supports there are at the college level, whether that be social, emotional, or academic supports. And also during this time of online learning for this semester and the impact of COVID-19, those questions have become broader and also just as important, if not more important, during this transition for a senior moving into college, or even juniors or other students looking at colleges and deciding what types of supports they'll need and services. So I'd like to start with highlighting a couple areas of differences, and one of them being that in high school, the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is what governs the supports at the high school level. And at the college level, there isn't special education, but there is the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Section 504 Rehabilitation Act and Civil Rights Restoration Act. And those are the different laws that apply high school and college. So one of those areas that is different with the policies and procedures of different supports is that at the high school, the school is responsible for identifying students and doing testing and setting up programs. And at the college level, students are responsible for self-identifying. So if they are looking to have supports and they're making the transition and wondering what kind of supports they have at the college level, it's their responsibility and often the family's help to seek out the supports and self-identify. Another area is documentation. At the high school level, the school provides assessments of disabilities and classifying disabilities, and the parents or legal guardians are involved in that. But the school is responsible for that area. At the college level, it's the students who provide the documentation that has been done in high school, especially in the areas of learning disabilities or different disabilities, academic disabilities. There would be testing that's been done to support, but also IEPs or 504s are often helpful at the college level as documentation. For students with mental health challenges, it might be a doctor's note describing what the diagnosis is and how it impacts the student's learning. Another area is parental involvement, and at the high school level or kindergarten through 12th, parents are part of the IEP team, the 504 team, and they are an integral part of that team, and the teachers and the case manager will include them in on progress reports and IEPs. And at the college level, the students are adults, so the parents aren't part of that, and it actually, there's privacy and confidentiality protections that if the student allows their parents or legal guardians, well, they're not, if they include their parents in those conversations, that's up to them. But typically colleges can't involve the parents unless the students agree to that. And then another area is academic plans versus accommodations and services. So at the high school level, students must, the schools will develop the IEP or the 504, and that can be really useful information for the colleges along with the evaluations that are done. At the college level, it's the students who are adults and they're activating the accommodations and services. So they are the ones who are actively involved in that and working with a learning specialist, often the 4 years of their college career, to make sure those are in place. But they're the ones who are being proactive and saying, these are some of my needs, educational needs.
Here we go. Sorry about that. So it seems like the real big difference is that in high school, the parents or the caregivers or take a very active role, mm-hmm. And as soon as the child or the student transitions to college, they're adults, they're independent, and mom and dad or the caregivers are out of the picture unless the student invites and welcomes them back.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that was great. So here's another question for you. Thinking about supports services in the school environment, what do you think, or what's your experience? What are the families looking for at the college level? What are the students looking for at the college level?
Yeah, at the college level, of course, the students are looking for what's the academic rigor? Are there courses, are there programs that meet what they want to do as adults? And are they challenging programs for them? Also, are the classes conducive to their learning style? And are they looking for small classes? Are they looking for more larger lecture type classes? A lot of the conversations we have with students is about their learning style. Are they more hands-on learners, auditory, visual learners? And they can be a combination of all of those, but when they're going to the college level, it's so different than what they've had in high school often. Is the college environment the type that will meet those academic and educational needs? Another area is just what is the campus environment like, and does it feel like home? Does it make them feel happy? And with students who are self-identifying and going to college, is that a place where they can thrive? So I know it sounds obvious, but of course when they're going to visit campuses, is that home to them? And then what are the supports that they can have in place at school? So the campus supports, and what are those types of campus supports? It could be residential education, and for certain students, what type of housing do they need? Specific housing, and is that something that can be accommodated at that college? Academic advisors, peer mentors, and then the disabilities services office, just like access resources at Colby Sawyer College, and what types of supports can be put in place. And then for students with mental health challenges, connecting with access resources or disability services, but also connecting with an academic advisor, and then the counseling and health center. So when parents and families, when students and families are coming to campus, they're looking for that basket of resources. And for students with disabilities and mental health challenges, especially, what is going to be in place for their student as they're more independent. And it's interesting, through the National Center for Learning Disabilities, it talks about when students leave high school and they go to college, that there's a smaller percent of students who self-identify at the college level. So they start, and that's for a number of factors, because maybe they want to establish themselves as a student that doesn't have a disability or a mental health challenge, or there's a shame that they feel coming to college with that identity, feeling that maybe people will treat them differently or not as well if they have that, and wanting to stand in a new environment without that. And through the same National Center for Learning Disabilities and other organizations, so many of the success factors that surround students with disabilities and mental health challenges are self-identifying and getting the supports in place when they first come to college. So doing that in the planning process and identifying supports in the colleges that provide the supports that they need educationally, but also when they're on campus, having a sense of community and seeking and being the self-advocacy skills to say, this is my documentation, I'd like to talk with a learning specialist, and then seeing how it goes with classes, what types of accommodations and services would benefit them. And it really changes year to year.
So there's been a lot of articles in the news about emotional support animals. And I'm raising that question because you're talking about the comprehensive college environment. So we know that students have, if they provide the right paperwork, they can bring an emotional support animal to campus depending. What are your thoughts and recommendations and suggestions really quickly on this issue before we move along?
It's a great question. It's a huge issue that's changed dramatically over the, I would say, past 5 years. And colleges recognizing the need of emotional support animals for students to meet their emotional needs. And what's really important is that the student work with a healthcare provider to identify what the disability is, what the diagnosis is, and how having an emotional support animal as a housing accommodation, because emotional support animals are different than service animals. So service animals are for students, and they would be throughout the campus, the service animal, but the emotional support animal is regulated to the housing. So it's a FDA law. So how does the accommodation of an emotional support animal support and help alleviate the symptoms of a disability? I think it's a fascinating question, and I wonder where it will go in the next couple of years. But there's been a rise in emotional support animals for very good reasons, and it's a very, that's other supports, it's individualized. So we meet with students individually and they bring in documentation to support it.
I'm sure you've got lots of really great stories about emotional support animals on campus, and I almost want to have another session about that, because it's, like you said, it's such a relevant topic and conversation.
Yeah.
So moving on, what should students and their families be aware of when they're transitioning in our current climate of COVID-19? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's in the current climate, the families, the students, the colleges are all wondering what, for some schools who haven't, who are still in the planning process, what are classes going to look like? Are students going to be 100% on campus? Is it going to be a hybrid where some student, where it's a mix of online and in-person classes? Some colleges and universities have decided to go all online. Colby Sawyer hasn't made that decision yet. We're still in the planning process. I think it's really important to think back to their current semester that they're in and how has their learning changed being online. So have they used Google Meet? Have they used Zoom? Have they used different video conferencing platforms? And for students with disabilities or mental health challenges, how has it changed for them? Some people say, oh, it's easier, it's harder. but the question is more, how is it different? So how is it easier, and are there different accommodations that are needed in the online platform that weren't needed before? So since you're not in the hands-on environment, is it helpful to have video or lectures or classes recorded so that they can go back to it? And really thinking ahead about that, because we at the college and post-secondary level are thinking about those accommodations. So even if it's a student coming back to Colby Sawyer and we do have more online courses, are those accommodations going to change for that student? It's also so important to plan and organize their time. So during this semester of online learning, it has changed with students having to organize in a different way. So reorganize, because when they are in the classroom and they're with their teachers, they might have that support and they would have it online too. But how is it different being in remote learning mode to getting their assignments done? And that's going to be really important at the college level too. And a lot of what we are talking to students about for the fall semester is what makes them happy. What extracurricular activities are going to support their emotional and social health to also support their academics, whether we're hybrid, all on campus, not on campus. What are they going to be able to continue to do and seek out to have that lightness in their academics and in their lives? I think it's such an important time for all of us as we learn as educators and as students and as families the new normal and what that's going to look like, right? So it's such an important topic to continue to discuss.
That was a wealth of information. So what's your if you had one recommendation, and I know I'm throwing this out at you, to give high school students who have got mental health challenges in their families, who are thinking about transitioning to college, who were planning on transitioning to college, but in light of all of these uncertainties, what one thing would you say to that student?
I would say congratulations on making the transition, going to college, and to seek out your support systems. So 2 to 3 adults on campus that you met possibly during a campus tour, and then peers as well. So seek out your connections would be my ultimate #1 priority for students.
So your message is very clear. Don't take a gap year.
Oh.
Go ahead with what you were planning to do, and congratulations.
Well, I wouldn't say don't take a gap year, but I would say congratulations. And if so people have contacted us saying, I'm not sure what to do. And yes, if you are moving forward toward college, I highly recommend it. We're planning for you to be with us. So I say go for it. It's up to you and your families ultimately to decide what to do.
Katie, thank you so much for this wonderful, almost half an hour. And this is going to be shared across the state. And just want to thank you again for all of your passion, compassion, experience, and knowledge.
Well, thank you, Lisa, and thank you for all the incredible work that the Student Wellness, the Bureau of Student Wellness is doing. I really appreciate it.